The heavy thud of the solid oak door echoed in the afternoon silence, splitting my world in two. The part that once was mine and the part one had just been thrown into. I stood on the cracked pavement of the Los Angeles street, facing the sprawling Spanish-style villa I had called home for nearly 30 years. Ethan, my only son, stood on the manicured lawn, his eyes as empty and cold as polished stone. "Get the hell out," he said. The words left his lips with the casual ease of swatting away a fly. They hit my chest like a shard of ice. He tossed a small duffel bag onto the ground near my feet. Inside, a few old clothes, the perfect symbol of a complete and total eviction. My car keys, house keys, cell phone, every credit card, all confiscated. I was severed from everything that had once constituted my life. A cool breeze, rare for Ella, rustled the palm trees, sending a shiver through my bones. I looked at my son's face one last time, searching for a trace of the little boy I had once held in my arms. There was nothing. Only a stranger, his features hardened by greed and a resentment I couldn't comprehend. "It's all mine now," he said, gesturing with a sweep of his arm at the house, the grounds. The house, the company. Everything. He turned and walked back inside without a second glance. The door clicked shut, softer this time but with a chilling finality. I was left alone with one bag and a shattered heart. In Ethan's eyes, I was a defeated, penniless mother. But he had no idea. He had no idea what I had done, just before his father left this world. The story didn't begin here on this lonely sidewalk. It began 3 days earlier, in a room that smelled of love and mortality. 3 days earlier. The air in our bedroom was heavy, the only sounds the rhythmic hum of the oxygen machine and the shallow, ragged breaths of my husband, Richard. Afternoon sun filtered through the white linen curtains, painting sad, shifting patterns on the bed where he lay. I sat beside him, holding his hand. The hand that was once so strong and warm, the one that had held mine at the altar, was now frail and cool to the touch. I gently dabbed his forehead with a damp cloth, wiping away the sweat. Richard's eyes fluttered open. He looked at me and managed a faint smile, weak but still full of the love that had defined our lives. "Helen," he rasped, "you must be tired." I shook my head, swallowing the lump in my throat. "Never, Rick. I just want to be here with you." We had been married for 30 years. We'd built everything from nothing. From a tiny workshop in a downtown LA garage, we created Stonefield Denim, a brand revered for its artisanal quality and timeless American style. Richard was the visionary, the face of the brand. I was the one behind the scenes, managing the details, nurturing the craft, the quiet soul of the operation. He squeezed my hand, a flicker of his old strength. "I don't have much time left, Helen. I know it." My tears came then, hot and silent. I pressed my face against his hand. "Don't say that, Rick. You have to stay with me. Listen to me," he said, his voice calm, insistent. "We have to be realistic." He paused, taking a shallow breath. "I'm not worried about me. I'm worried about Ethan." Just speaking our son's name filled Richard's eyes with a profound sadness. The sound of expensive leather shoes on the hardwood floor announced his arrival. Ethan entered, dressed in a designer shirt and tailored trousers. The sharp scent of his cologne clashed with the sterile smell of the room. He glanced at his father, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes, before turning to me. "Mom, I need to talk to you about the new Q4 projection." His tone was flat, as if discussing the weather. I wiped my tears and looked at him. "Right now, Ethan? Your father just woke up. It'll only take a minute." "It's important," he insisted. "It's about the future of the company." Richard struggled to sit up, and I quickly arranged the pillows behind him. "What is it, son?" he asked, his voice weak but still commanding. Ethan pulled out his sleek tablet, the screen flaring to life with charts and graphs. "Here. I've drafted a complete rebranding strategy for Stonefield." He swiped through the presentation. "First, we're discontinuing the heritage line. Those old selvage denim styles are obsolete. The profit margins are terrible. But those styles are our legacy, Ethan," I said softly. "A legacy that doesn't make money is just a museum piece, Mom," he retorted without looking at me. "I'm switching to automated industrial looms. They're faster, and the cost per unit is a fraction of hand weaving." "What about our people, son?" Richard interjected, his voice trembling with disappointment. The weavers and cutters who have been with us from the beginning? Ethan sighed, a sound of pure annoyance. They're too old, Dad. Too slow. I'll offer them a severance package. We'll use hotshot young designers for graphic-heavy, fast fashion pieces. We'll flood social media. Target the influencer market. He went on, passionately detailing his plan to gut the soul of our life's work and turn it into a cheap, heartless factory. Richard closed his eyes, exhausted. He waved a weak hand. That's enough, Ethan. Leave us. I'm tired. Ethan looked irritated that his presentation was cut short. He packed away his tablet. Mom talked to him. We have to move forward. He walked out, leaving a suffocating silence in his wake. Richard turned to me. His eyes filled with anguish. You see, Helen? This is what I've feared. He doesn't understand, Richard whispered. It's not just about the denim. It's the story. It's the lives of our artisans. It's the craft passed down through generations. I squeezed his hand, trying to comfort us both. He's just young, Rick. Maybe he'll learn. No, Helen. He's not young anymore. He's blinded by greed. Richard was seized by a fit of coughing, and I rushed to give him a sip of water. When he caught his breath, his voice was firm. I've made a decision, Helen. I will not let him destroy what we built. I looked at him confused. What are you going to do? I've already spoken with our lawyer, Mr. Davis, he said. We're going to protect the heart of Stonefield. That evening, Mr. Davis came to the house. The three of us sat in Richard's study, surrounded by rolls of denim and design sketches. Richard explained the plan he and the lawyer had quietly prepared. It was ruthless and it was heartbreaking. We'll establish a new, separate entity in your name, Helen, Mr. Davis explained, handing me a stack of documents. This new company will hold all the truly valuable assets. The intellectual property for the heritage patterns, the proprietary indigo dyeing formulas, the contracts with our premium cotton suppliers, and most importantly, the entire list of our long-term, high-value clients. I stared at the papers, stunned. It was a silent, surgical removal of Stonefield's soul. And the old company? I asked. Stonefield Denim, the brand name, will remain, Richard answered. Ethan will inherit the name, the factory building, and the old machinery. And, Mr. Davis added grimly, the massive debt he's about to incur with his new project. My heart felt like a lead weight. I knew this was a betrayal of my own son. But looking into Richard's eyes, I saw the necessity. This wasn't revenge. It was protection. Protection for our legacy, for the loyal employees who would be cast aside. And maybe, just maybe, it was the only way to teach Ethan the most painful lesson of his life. I'm sorry to put this burden on you, Helen, Richard said, his hand covering mine. But I trust you more than anyone. You are the one who truly understands this business. You are the one who has always been its heart. When the time comes, he whispered, you have to be strong. I nodded slowly, my vision blurred by tears. I picked up the pen and signed my name on document after document, each signature sealing our family's fate. That night, I became the guardian of my husband's legacy and the saboteur of my son's ambition. A storm was coming, and I would have to face it alone. 2 days later, Richard passed away peacefully in my arms. The silence that replaced his breathing was the loudest sound I had ever heard. The large house, once so full of life, now felt cavernous and cold. My heart was broken, but my promise to my husband kept me standing. The memorial service was simple but dignified, just as Richard had wanted. Most of the guests were old friends, loyal clients, and our employees. I greeted them with a placid expression, hiding my grief behind a mask of composure. Ethan stood beside me in an expensive black suit, but his mind was elsewhere. He accepted condolences, but his eyes were constantly scanning the room, looking for business opportunities, not solace. I even saw him exchange business cards with a couple of venture capitalists. Carol, Richard's sister, hovered near Ethan. She wore a black designer dress that was a little too glamorous for the occasion, and her eyes held a poorly concealed look of triumph. She had always been jealous of me, thinking I was just some small-town girl who got lucky. She whispered in Ethan's ear constantly, casting victorious glances my way. It was clear which side she was on. "I'm so sorry for your loss, Helen," Carol said, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. "Richard is in a better place. I suppose it's time for the new generation to take over now." She glanced at Ethan, making her allegiance clear. I just nodded, too weary to engage. After everyone had left, I returned home, exhausted in body and spirit. I wanted to collapse, but I knew I couldn't. I went to Richard's study and opened his desk drawer. Inside was a brown envelope with my name on it. I opened it carefully. Inside was a one-way bus ticket to Portland, Oregon, and a thick wad of cash enough for a new start. Tucked beneath it was a small note in Richard's familiar scrawl. "Go find Frank in Oregon. He'll be waiting for you. I'm leaving it all in your hands, my love. Always, Rick." Tears dripped onto the paper as I clutched it to my chest. This was his final gift. Not money or property, but a plan, his trust, and a path forward. I hid the envelope in the old duffel bag I had prepared. The next morning, the storm arrived. I came downstairs to find Ethan and Carol waiting at the dining table, a large file of documents in front of them. Mr. Davis was there too, his face grim. "Helen, sit down," Carol said, her voice full of smug authority. Ethan pushed the file towards me. "This is Dad's will," he said, not meeting my eyes. "Mr. Davis will explain." The lawyer read the will in a formal monotone. The gist was simple. Richard had left the company, Stonefield Denham, and all its physical assets, including the house, solely to Ethan. For me, a cash settlement, substantial but a pittance compared to the company's value. Carol smirked at me. Ethan's face remained a mask, but I saw the satisfaction in his eyes. As per the will, this house and all property within it now belong to Mr. Ethan Stone, Mr. Davis concluded. "Which means," Ethan said, his voice cold and final, "you no longer have any right to be here, Mom. I'll give you 1 hour to pack your things. 1 hour for a life of 30 years. I didn't argue. I rose and walked upstairs to our bedroom, no, to my bedroom. I packed only the essentials and a small framed photo from our wedding day. I looked around the room one last time, memories flooding in. I pushed them away. Now was not the time for weakness. When I came downstairs, Ethan was waiting by the door. "Is that it?" he asked, his disdainful gaze falling on my worn duffel bag. I nodded. "Good," he said. "Then you can go." And that's where the story came full circle. He took everything. My phone, my credit cards. He wanted to make sure I left with nothing. He pushed me out the door and tossed the bag after me. "Get the hell out." The door slammed shut. I stood on the pavement, silent, tears finally streaming down my face. Not tears of defeat, but of farewell. Farewell to my old life, my old self. Ethan's sleek sports car purred out of the driveway. Carol was in the passenger seat. She rolled down the window and gave me one last, triumphant smirk before the car sped away, leaving me in a cloud of exhaust and dust. I bent down, picked up my bag, and brushed it off. I took a deep, shuddering breath, tasting the painful air of freedom. I might look like a destitute woman, but a small flame of hope was kindling in my heart. I had the cash, the bus ticket, and most importantly, I had the plan. I began to walk, my feet carrying me towards the bus station. I thought of Frank, our loyal factory manager, who had resigned the day Richard died. He was waiting for me in Oregon, along with a few of our most skilled artisans. I thought of the heritage denim patterns, the intellectual property of which was now entirely mine. I thought of the list of loyal clients who trusted the quality we had always delivered. Ethan had the shell, the name that was about to become an empty echo of the past. I had its heart. The sky was turning a soft orange as I reached the station. The bustling crowds and the rumble of engines made me feel strangely alive. I wasn't alone anymore. I looked at the ticket in my hand. Los Angeles, Portland. It was a ticket to a new life. The hiss of the bus's air brakes was my signal to move forward. I boarded, found a window seat, and placed my old bag beside me, a silent companion. As the bus pulled away from the station, the glittering, cruel city of Los Angeles faded into the twilight. I didn't look back. My destination and the real war lay ahead. The bus sighed to a halt, its journey's end. I stepped onto the platform at the Portland bus station. The morning air a stark contrast to Los Angeles. It was cool and damp, carrying the scent of pine and wet earth. The pace here was different, slower, more deliberate. For the first time in my life, I felt like a true stranger. A woman with no ties, no one waiting. Or so I thought. "Mrs. Stone." A familiar, gruff voice called from behind me. I turned to see the warm, weathered face of Frank, our old factory manager. He wore a simple flannel shirt, but his eyes held the same unwavering loyalty and respect. A wave of relief washed over me. "Frank," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "Came to pick you up," he said with a small smile, taking my heavy bag. "Mr. Stone told me to take the best care of you." Hearing Richard's name brought a fresh wave of grief, but I pushed it down. It was time to be strong. "Thank you, Frank, for leaving everything to come here." "Wasn't a choice, ma'am," he said, shaking his head. "I spent my life working for your husband. I know what he wanted to protect. That place back there, it ain't my place anymore." His words fortified me. I wasn't fighting alone. Frank led me to his old beaten-up pickup truck. We drove out of the city, heading towards a smaller town nestled in the rolling hills of Oregon. The landscape, with its dense green forests and wide-open fields, was a balm to my wounded spirit. Soon we turned onto a quiet lane and pulled up to a 2-story wooden house, a classic piece of Pacific Northwest architecture. It was old but well kept, with a wide porch and surrounded by fir and oak trees. "This is where you'll be staying," Frank said. "I rented it for you." It was nothing like the LA villa, but it felt more like a home. It had a warmth, a soul that the other house never possessed. "And the mill?" I asked. Frank pointed to a large single-story timber building next to the house. "Right there. It's an old textile mill that's been abandoned for years, but the bones are good. The owner gave us a good deal when he heard we wanted to make authentic denim again." We walked over to the mill. The heavy wooden doors creaked open to reveal a vast, dusty space. Sunlight streamed through gaps in the roof, illuminating a dozen old, silent looms, standing like patient soldiers waiting for orders. I ran my hand over the smooth, aged wood of one of the machines, imagining the rhythmic clatter that would soon fill this space once more. "Needs a lot of work," Frank said. "That's fine," I replied, my voice firm. "We'll start tomorrow." "And the crew?" Frank grinned. "They're waiting for you, Helen. Maria, Sal, the best of the old guard. They were heartbroken when Ethan let them go. Said if they couldn't make denim with you and Mr. Stone, they wouldn't make it for anyone." I was overwhelmed with gratitude. This was my real asset. This was the heart Richard had spoken of. Not soulless machines, but people, loyalty, and a shared passion. That first day after settling in, I walked into the small town to find something to eat. I found a classic American diner with a handful of tables. A woman with kind eyes and a cloud of white hair was working the grill. "What can I get for you, hon?" she asked in a warm, friendly tone. "A coffee and a piece of pie, please," I said. "New in town? Haven't seen your face around here." "Just moved in," I replied. She set a thick mug of coffee and a slice of apple pie in front of me. "What brings you to Oak Creek?" I hesitated for a moment. "I'm here to reopen the old denim mill." Her eyes lit up. "You don't say. That's wonderful news. This town could use the life. I'm Brenda. Anything you need, you just ask." Her genuine kindness began to melt the ice around my heart. Before I left, she refused to take my money. "On the house," she said. "Welcome to the neighborhood." I walked back to my new house, full in stomach and in spirit. That night, for the first time in a long time, I slept soundly, dreaming not of the past, but of the work that lay ahead. Meanwhile, in Los Angeles, Ethan's empire was being built on sand. He stood in a sleek, cold conference room, projecting an image of confidence in his bespoke suit. In front of him, a crowd of investors and fashion influencers. "Stonefield Denim is entering a new era," he announced, as a new soulless logo flashed on the screen. "We are disrupting the tired old world of heritage apparel." Carol in the front row clapped the loudest. Ethan detailed his plans for German machinery, foreign designers, and a multi-million-dollar digital marketing blitz. "What about the classic patterns?" a journalist asked. Ethan smirked. "Those belong in a museum. We're about the future." He didn't know that those patterns weren't in a museum. They were being brought back to life, hundreds of miles away, by the very hands he had dismissed. He didn't know that he was holding an empty shell, a beautiful facade with no foundation. The storm he was creating was not one of success, but one that would slowly, surely tear him apart. The next morning in Oak Creek, I stood in the now clean mill. Maria and Sal were expertly tuning the old looms. The first sounds of conversation and laughter filled the once abandoned space. I opened a worn leather-bound journal, Richard's journal filled with our original patterns. I turned to the first page, to a design called the Founder's Weave. "We'll start with this one," I announced. Everyone looked at me, their eyes shining with hope. The morning light streamed into the mill, catching the threads of deep indigo-dyed cotton, making them gleam. It was the dawn of my new life. The dawn of Oak Creek Mills. The days in Oregon flew by, each one filled with purpose. The clatter of the wooden looms became my favorite music. We weren't a factory, we were a family. Maria and Sal taught me ancient dyeing techniques using local plants, creating colors that were rich and alive. Our business grew slowly, steadily. We had no marketing budget. Our only advertisement was unparalleled quality. Frank began contacting Stonefield's old, high-value clients. At first they were hesitant, but then we sent them a sample. "Helen, my God." One of our biggest clients, a boutique owner from New York, said over the phone, "The denim your son sent me feels like cardboard. This is what I remember. This has life." That day we received our first major order. Word spread like wildfire through the world of high fashion and true denim connoisseurs. They weren't looking for a brand name. They were looking for the soul of the craft they thought was lost. They found it in our small mill in Oregon. I lived a simple life, finding joy in small things. The pain of my son's betrayal was a scar that would never fade, but I was no longer drowning in it. I was using it as fuel. In Los Angeles, Ethan's kingdom was crumbling. The mass-produced denim was a disaster. It looked good in a photo, but it felt cheap. Complaints and returns flooded in. "Mr. Stone, the customers are complaining the color is bleeding," his new production manager reported. "Then fix it." Ethan screamed. "We're using the best chemical dyes, sir. But they're nothing like the natural indigo process your mother used." The mention of my name sent Ethan into a rage. His legacy clients abandoned him. His new fast fashion customers were fickle. Profits plummeted while expenses for the German machines, the celebrity designers, the marketing skyrocketed. "Ethan, we need more capital," a panicked Carol told him. "We're almost out of cash." The banks, seeing the red flags, stopped lending. One night, drowning his sorrows in expensive whiskey, Ethan saw a copy of GQ on his coffee table. On the cover, a famous actor was wearing a pair of jeans. The headline stopped him cold. "Oak Creek Mills, the rebirth of American artisanal denim." He snatched up the magazine. The article described a small upstart brand from Oregon taking the high fashion world by storm with its impeccable quality and heritage designs. It spoke of a small warm workshop and dedicated artisans. And at the end of the article, the founder's name. Helen Stone. The whiskey glass shattered on the marble floor. "Impossible," he whispered, staring at my name. His mother. The woman he'd cast out with a single duffel bag. His first feeling wasn't remorse but a white-hot fury. He felt betrayed, tricked. "It was her plan all along," he roared, sweeping everything off his desk. He called Carol, his voice shaking with rage. "Mom, she started a rival company. She's in Oregon. She took our weavers." "I don't know how," he screamed into the phone, "but I'm going to find out. I'm going to see for myself how she did this." Fueled by a toxic cocktail of rage and a broken heart, he grabbed his car keys and sped out of the city. His sports car flew up the coast, carrying him not towards revenge, but towards a confrontation with a truth more painful than any he could imagine, the truth about himself. The long drive from Los Angeles to Oregon did nothing to cool Ethan's rage. The closer he got, the more the fury burned. He remembered my placid face the day he threw me out, a face he'd mistaken for defeat. Now he saw it as the face of a master manipulator. He didn't call. He just punched Oak Creek Mills into his GPS, and it led him straight to our quiet little lane. The rustic mill looked pathetic to him, a shack compared to his state-of-the-art facility. He slammed his sports car door, the sound echoing through the peaceful afternoon. Everyone in the mill stopped, turning to the source of the noise. I was discussing a new dye mixture with Maria when I saw him. My heart lurched. Our eyes met across the yard. His were blazing with a raw, accusatory fire. "Ethan," I breathed. He strode towards me, his expensive shoes kicking up dust. Frank moved to intercept him, but I held up a hand. This was between my son and me. "So this is it," he spat, his voice dripping with contempt. "Your new kingdom. Not bad for someone I threw out with nothing." "Why are you here, Ethan?" I asked, my voice steady. "Why am I here?" He laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. "I'm here to see the thief who stole my company. You stole my weavers, my clients, my entire future." He was pointing at me, his finger trembling with rage. "You planned this from the beginning, didn't you? Before Dad even died." I stood my ground, my silence fueling his fury. "Answer me," he screamed. "You venomous snake. You played the victim. Then you stabbed me in the back." His words were knives, but I couldn't show weakness. I met his gaze. "And what do you call what you did to me, Ethan?" I asked quietly. "The day you threw your own mother out of her home, took everything she had, left her without a dollar to her name? Did you ever once think how that felt?" The question stopped him, but only for a second. "That's different. Dad left it all to me. It was my right." "Your right to destroy everything your father built?" I shot back, my own voice rising with long-suppressed pain. "Your right to cast out people who gave their lives to this family? To turn a business with a soul into a heartless machine. Your father knew this would happen," I continued, the words tumbling out. "He saw it all. That's why he had to protect the heart of the business. The real value isn't in a building or a brand name, Ethan." I gestured around the mill. "It's here. It's in these people. It's in their hands, in their love for the craft. That is something you never understood, and something you will never possess." Ethan stared, speechless. The truth hit him like a physical blow. He hadn't just been betrayed by me. He had never been chosen in the first place. His own father, the man he'd spent his life trying to impress, had orchestrated his downfall. "No, Dad wouldn't do that to me," he mumbled, shaking his head. "He loved me." "He loved you so much, Ethan," I said, my voice softening. "But sometimes love means teaching the hardest lessons. He hoped that one day, you would finally understand what truly matters." Ethan collapsed to his knees on the dusty ground, clutching his head. His ambition, his empire, his entire sense of self crumbled around him. He hadn't lost to me. He'd lost to his father's wisdom. He'd lost to his own arrogance. He looked up at me, his eyes empty. "What do I have left?" he whispered. "You've taken everything." I walked over and knelt in front of him. "I took nothing from you, Ethan," I said, my voice calm but firm. "Everything you lost, you threw away yourself. The company you have is an empty shell because you discarded its core. You have nothing left because you never valued what you had in the first place." Each word was a hammer blow to his pride. He buried his face in his hands and began to sob, the raw, broken cries of a lost child. I let him cry, knowing that sometimes you have to hit rock bottom before you can start to climb back up. After a long time, his sobs quieted. He looked up, his eyes red and swollen. What do I do now?" It was the first time he had asked a question instead of giving an order. "You can get in your fancy car and drive back to Los Angeles," I said evenly. "Back to your Aunt Carol. Back to the mountain of debt you created. That is the world you chose." He glanced at the car, a symbol of his false success that now looked like a cage. I have nowhere to go," he admitted. "The bank is taking everything. The house, the company, I have nothing." My heart ached for him, the mother in me wanting to pull him into an embrace. But the woman who had been so deeply wounded knew it wasn't time. The lesson wasn't over. I stood up, looking down at him. "Then you have to prove yourself," I said, my voice decisive. "Prove that you truly want to change, not just because you're out of options." He looked up, confused. "Prove it how?" I pointed to an empty loom in the corner of the mill. "You start there," I said. "You start at the very bottom. You learn to spin the thread, to dye the cotton, to work the loom. You learn to respect the craft, to respect other people. And most importantly, you learn to respect yourself." Disbelief warred with despair in his eyes. Him, Ethan Stone, the MBA, the CEO, doing manual labor? "I can't," he whispered. "Is that your answer?" I asked. Then there's nothing more to say. The door is always open for you to leave. I turned my back, ready to walk away, to let him make his own choice. I took 2 steps. Wait, he called out. I stopped but didn't turn around. I'll do it, he said. His voice choked with a reluctance I could feel. I'll prove it. I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath. This was the biggest gamble of my Lifia bet on my son's broken soul. I turned back to him. Good, I said. Then get up. Your work starts tomorrow at dawn. You'll be Maria's assistant. I walked away, leaving him alone with his decision. His hands, which had never known a day of hard labor, and the empty loom that represented his last and only chance. The next morning, Ethan was there before sunrise, not in a designer suit, but in an old t-shirt and jeans. His sports car was gone. Maria greeted him with a nod and set him to his first tasks: hauling water, gathering herbs for the dye vats. He didn't complain. He just worked, his movements clumsy but determined. The first weeks were brutal. His hands blistered and bled. He learned to take orders from the very people he had once fired. He was quiet, withdrawn, humbled. Many times I saw the urge to quit in his eyes, but he stayed. Perhaps because he had nowhere else to go, or perhaps because something inside him was starting to shift. Slowly he began to learn. He watched, he listened. He started to see the immense skill and patience required to create a single yard of our denim. The other workers, once wary, began to see his effort. The tension in the mill eased. One day, he instinctively rushed to help Sal lift a heavy vat of hot dye. Thanks, kid, Sal grunted, and for the first time in months, I saw a faint, tired smile on Ethan's face. While Ethan was learning his lesson, Oak Creek Mills was flourishing. A major fashion house in Paris placed a huge order, a chance to put our craft on the world stage. I remained distant with Ethan, observing him, watching him transform. He was stronger, his eyes clearer, but I still held back. The wound he had inflicted was deep, and I wasn't ready to forgive. Then came a turning point. We were preparing the Paris order when the dye came out wrong, a slight, but unacceptable variation in color. Panic set in. We were running out of time. As I sat in my office, stressed and defeated, there was a soft knock on the door. It was Ethan. He held a few leaves in his hand. Mom, he said, the word feeling new and strange on his tongue. I think I know what the problem is. I let him in. These are oak leaves, he said. I noticed they're younger than usual for this time of year. I remember reading in Dad's old journal he wrote that young oak leaves, when mixed with the iron water, can throw off the indigos but just enough to alter the shade. I stared at him, stunned. I had no idea he had been reading Richard's private journals. He was applying the scientific method he'd learned in college to the traditional knowledge he was absorbing here. He continued, a newfound confidence in his voice. I think if we adjust the acidity with a bit of wood ash, we can correct it. He handed me a piece of paper with the revised formula scribbled on it. We went to the dye house and tried his formula. We all held our breath as he pulled the test skein from the vat. It was perfect. A deep, rich, flawless indigo. A cheer went up in the mill. Maria clapped him on the back. Good work, kid. You've got your father's eye. That night, Ethan found me sitting alone in the quiet mill. He brought me a cup of tea. Mom, he began, looking me straight in the eye. I'm sorry. For everything. I know those are just words, but I want you to know I finally understand. I understand what I did and what I threw away. Tears welled in my eyes. It was the apology I had waited a lifetime to hear. I reached out and took his hand. It was no longer the soft hand of a businessman, but the rough, calloused hand of a maker. He gripped my hand back, and in that simple touch, the wall between us finally crumbled. In the months that followed, we rebuilt our relationship, brick by painful brick. Ethan became an integral part of Oak Creek Mills, blending his modern knowledge with my traditional expertise. He didn't want to be a boss, he wanted to be a partner, a son. One afternoon he presented me with a gift. It was a denim scarf, the first thing he had ever woven completely by himself. It was flawed, the weave slightly uneven, the color not quite perfect. But to me it was the most beautiful thing in the world. It's not much, he said, but I wanted you to have it. Tears of joy streamed down my face. It's beautiful, Ethan. Thank you. I pulled him into a hug, a real one, and in my arms I held my son again. A man redeemed not by success but by humility. The news eventually came that Stonefield Denim had officially declared bankruptcy. Ethan heard the news with a quiet sigh. It's a lesson I'll never forget, Mom. Our story isn't a fairy tale. The scars remain, reminders of the pain we caused each other. But they also remind us of the power of forgiveness and the strength of our bond. Today, I often sit on the porch in the morning sipping my coffee, wearing the imperfect scarf my son made me. I watch him in the mill, laughing with Maria and Sal, his hands stained with indigo, his face full of a purpose he never would have found in a boardroom. I lost a husband, and for a time I lost a son. I was a woman who had nothing, but in losing everything, I found a strength I never knew I possessed. I built a new life, and I got my son's heart back. Richard's true legacy wasn't a company. It was a second chance. The morning sun hits the deep blue threads hanging to dry, making them shimmer like 1,000 tiny jewels. It is my dawn. Our dawn. A new beginning woven from the threads of the past.